Arnold Rothstein was born in 1882 in New York City to a respected Jewish family. His father was a successful businessman and community leader who believed in hard work and education. But Arnold rejected that path early. While his siblings followed traditional careers, Arnold was drawn to numbers, probability, and risk. He disliked honest labor and believed intelligence should be used to win, not work. This mindset became the foundation of his criminal philosophy. He didn't see crime as violence, he saw it as business. From a young age, he believed the system could be beaten if you understood its weaknesses. Unlike street criminals who stole out of desperation, Rothstein gambled out of fascination. He studied cards, dice, and horse racing obsessively. He believed luck was a lie, and that probability ruled everything. By his early 20s, Arnold was already making large bets and winning consistently. He didn't drink heavily, didn't fight, and didn't brag. He watched, calculated, and waited. This discipline separated him from typical gamblers and attracted attention from bookmakers and criminals who realized he was different, smarter, colder, and far more dangerous. Rothstein had no interest in robbery or random violence. He believed those crimes were messy and attracted police. Instead, he focused on fixing systems, gambling houses, sports betting, and political corruption. He understood that controlling outcomes was more profitable than stealing money directly. This mindset would later influence an entire generation of American gangsters. Arnold didn't want to be feared. He wanted to be untouchable. By the 1910s, Rothstein was deeply connected to New York's underworld. He financed gambling operations, backed bookmakers, and quietly funded criminal enterprises. Unlike traditional gangsters, he dressed like a businessman and moved in elite social circles. Police often underestimated him because he didn't look like a criminal. This was intentional. Arnold believed appearance was armor. His ability to move between high society and the underworld made him incredibly powerful. Lucky Luciano admired Rothstein deeply. Arnold taught Luciano that organized crime should function like a corporation, not a gang. He explained profit sharing, structure, and long-term planning. Luciano later admitted Rothstein changed how he viewed crime entirely. Without Rothstein, the modern American mafia may never have existed in its structured form. Arnold didn't just commit crimes, he educated criminals. Meyer Lansky, another numbers-focused mind, bonded instantly with Rothstein. Together, they refined gambling operations and money laundering techniques. Lansky later called Rothstein his greatest mentor. Arnold taught him how to hide profits, bribe officials, and keep operations clean. This partnership laid the groundwork for national organized crime networks. Bugsy Siegel respected Rothstein's intelligence, but lacked his patience. Arnold often acted as the financial backer behind Siegel's violent operations. He believed muscle was useful, but only when controlled. Siegel provided intimidation, Rothstein provided strategy. This combination became deadly effective. Rothstein believed emotion ruined profit. He discouraged unnecessary violence, drunken behavior, and public displays of power. He believed criminals should act like executives. This philosophy directly shaped how crime families later operated across America. Sports betting was Rothstein's masterpiece. He realized sports outcomes could be manipulated far more easily than casinos. Players were underpaid, officials were corruptible, and oversight was weak. He quietly began testing this theory. By 1919, Rothstein had the money, connections, and confidence to attempt the impossible, fixing the World Series. He never directly contacted players. Instead, he used layers of intermediaries, ensuring plausible deniability. This would become his signature move. Rothstein's greatest strength was distance. In the 1919 World Series scheme, he never spoke directly to any baseball player. Instead, he worked through trusted middlemen like Abe Attell, a former boxing champion who acted as a go-between. Rothstein understood one rule clearly: the man at the top should never be visible. If the fix collapsed, the blame would fall on gamblers and players, not the financier. This method of insulation later became standard practice in organized crime. Abe Attell was the one who dealt directly with the Chicago White Sox players. He promised them money to throw games, claiming Rothstein was backing the operation. Whether Rothstein personally approved every detail is still debated, but the money flowed from his circle. Attell took the exposure, Rothstein took the profits. It was a perfect example of Arnold's philosophy: risk belongs to others. Rothstein knew baseball players were poorly paid and bitter toward owners. He understood resentment was leverage. Players like Chick Gandil, Eddie Cicotte, and Lefty Williams were angry and financially desperate. Rothstein didn't need threats, just cash. This insight showed how deeply he understood human weakness. As games unfolded, strange errors appeared. Missed catches, bad pitches, obvious mistakes. Gamblers noticed instantly. Rothstein's betting syndicate placed massive wagers against the White Sox, winning huge sums. The fix worked too well. That visibility later became a problem. Rothstein reportedly made millions from the fix, though exact numbers remain disputed. What mattered wasn't the money, it was the proof of concept. He had demonstrated that even America's most sacred sport could be controlled with money. Crime had entered the national bloodstream. When rumors spread, newspapers exploded with outrage. Fans felt betrayed. Baseball's image was shattered. Rothstein remained silent, calm, and distant. He knew panic was guilt's loudest signal. Despite widespread belief that Rothstein was behind the fix, prosecutors had no evidence tying him directly to the players. No paper trail, no recorded conversations, no witnesses willing to testify. Rothstein walked free, untouched. It was one of the most humiliating moments in American legal history. The underworld watched closely. Rothstein didn't just escape punishment, he embarrassed the system. Young gangsters learned that intelligence mattered more than violence. From that moment on, crime evolved. Players were banned for life, careers ended, families destroyed. Rothstein lost nothing. This imbalance shocked the public, but thrilled criminals. It proved power protected itself. After 1919, Rothstein became a legend. Not a thug, not a killer, a banker. Criminals across New York sought his funding. He decided who rose and who failed. Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, and Frank Costello absorbed Rothstein's teachings. They learned to avoid emotional crime, avoid publicity, and treat crime like an enterprise. Rothstein became the blueprint. Luciano had been violent and impulsive. Rothstein taught him restraint. He explained that bodies attract police, but money buys silence. Luciano later applied these lessons to reshape the mafia. Rothstein helped bridge Italian and Jewish gangs, something previously unheard of. He believed profit ignored ethnicity. This alliance reshaped organized crime nationwide. Rothstein controlled casinos, betting houses, and horse racing syndicates. His operations spanned multiple states. He financed everything, but owned nothing on paper. Rothstein bribed officials quietly, not with threats, but with consistency. Monthly payments created loyalty. He believed reliable corruption was safer than intimidation. Unlike his associates, Rothstein rarely carried weapons. He trusted his mind and his distance. Violence to him was a failure of planning. Rothstein wore tailored suits, dined at elite restaurants, and mingled with bankers. Society saw him as a gambler, not a criminal mastermind. Though cautious, Rothstein financed early narcotics operations. He avoided street dealing, but funded importers and distributors, earning profits without exposure. As his empire grew, so did his enemies. Gamblers owed him money, criminals resented his control. Respect slowly turned into fear. One gambler's unpaid debt would set the stage for Rothstein's downfall. Arnold believed debts were sacred and betrayal unforgivable. By the early 1920s, Arnold Rothstein wasn't just gambling for fun, he was gambling for control. High-stakes poker games became battlegrounds where fortunes changed hands overnight. These games were filled with gangsters, politicians, corrupt businessmen, and desperate men willing to risk everything. Rothstein often bankrolled the games, meaning players borrowed money directly from him. That gave him power long after the cards were folded. Rothstein understood something most gamblers didn't. The game itself didn't matter. What mattered was debt. He allowed players to lose large sums, knowing they would owe him money they couldn't repay. Once indebted, they belonged to him. Some became informants, others became criminals. A few disappeared. George McManus was a small-time gambler with big ambition. He borrowed heavily from Rothstein and lost badly. Instead of paying his debt, McManus avoided him. This was a fatal mistake. In Rothstein's world, debt wasn't negotiable. It was law. Rothstein confronted McManus calmly. No threats, no shouting. He simply reminded him of the amount owed. McManus panicked. He knew what happened to men who crossed Arnold Rothstein. Fear clouded his judgment. In November 1928, Rothstein attended a high-stakes poker game at the Park Central Hotel in Manhattan. He lost a large sum, some say intentionally. Rothstein believed the game was fixed against him. This was something he never tolerated. When Rothstein lost, he refused to pay. This shocked the underworld. Rothstein had built his reputation on honoring debts. By refusing payment, he broke his own rule. His enemies saw weakness. If Rothstein could refuse to pay, others could too. His authority began to crack. The balance he had carefully built started slipping. On November 4th, 1928, Rothstein was summoned to room 349 at the Park Central Hotel in Manhattan. He believed it was a routine meeting. He was wrong. As Rothstein entered the room, a gunshot rang out. He was hit in the stomach. The shooter vanished into the hallway. Rothstein collapsed, bleeding heavily. At the hospital, doctors asked Rothstein who shot him. He refused to answer. Even dying, he followed the underworld code. He told police, "You stick to your trade, I'll stick to mine." Rothstein's silence shocked investigators. He chose loyalty to the criminal code over survival. This cemented his legend forever. Rothstein suffered for 2 days. Infections spread. He remained calm, composed, and silent. No names were given. On November 6, 1928, Arnold Rothstein died at age 46. The man who modernized American crime was gone. No one celebrated openly. Rothstein had too many connections, too many secrets. His death created fear. George McManus was arrested but later acquitted due to lack of evidence. Just like the World Series fix, the system failed again. After his death, chaos followed. Without his control, violence increased. Order vanished. Lucky Luciano applied Rothstein's lessons. He eliminated old bosses and created structured crime families. Meyer Lansky perfected Rothstein's financial systems, casinos, offshore accounts, and international money laundering. He proved crime could be intellectual, that money could replace bullets, that silence could defeat courts. Arnold Rothstein didn't just commit crimes, he redefined how crime works, and America has never escaped his influence. After Rothstein's death, New York's criminal world felt lost. He had been the organizer, the financier, the man who kept chaos controlled. Without him, gangs began fighting openly. Violence returned to the streets because no one had the authority or intelligence to keep everyone in line. Shootings, betrayals, and revenge killings increased. Rothstein believed violence attracted attention. Without his influence, younger gangsters relied on fear instead of planning. The underworld became louder and easier for police to notice. Lucky Luciano stepped forward using Rothstein's teachings. He removed emotional leaders and replaced them with business-minded bosses. Rothstein's ideas lived on through Luciano's actions. Traditional mafia bosses ruled through family loyalty and old customs. Rothstein had shown a better way: money over tradition. Luciano applied this thinking and dismantled outdated leadership. Inspired indirectly by Rothstein's vision, the Mafia Commission was formed, a governing body to prevent wars and protect profits. Rothstein had dreamed of this structure long before it existed. Lansky refined Rothstein's financial strategies. Casinos, offshore accounts, and international money laundering became standard practice. Rothstein's lessons became global. Crime families began operating like corporations: clear roles, clear profits, clear rules. This transformation traced directly back to Rothstein's philosophy. Police and federal agents studied Rothstein's operations for decades. He became a case study in how criminals could evade justice without violence. Baseball never fully recovered from the 1919 scandal. Rothstein's shadow remained over the sport, forcing reforms and strict oversight. As a direct response to the scandal, Major League Baseball appointed its first commissioner to restore trust. Rothstein changed sports forever. After Rothstein, crime moved indoors. Meetings replaced shootouts. Accountants replaced gunmen. He had professionalized crime. Every major American mob boss studied Rothstein's life, not to copy his mistakes, but to copy his intelligence. Rothstein avoided attention. He understood fame brought danger. Ironically, his intelligence made him famous anyway. Movies and books portrayed characters inspired by Rothstein, often glamorous, rarely accurate, but always powerful. The real Rothstein wasn't flashy or charming. He was cold, quiet, and calculating. That's what made him dangerous. Despite massive crimes, Rothstein died without a conviction. This fact alone terrified authorities. Refusing to speak to police became sacred in underworld crime. Rothstein's final act defined criminal loyalty. More than a gangster, Rothstein was a lender. He financed crime like Wall Street financed business. White-collar crime, money laundering, and racketeering all trace roots to Rothstein's strategies. Arnold Rothstein killed without killing. He destroyed lives with contracts, debt, and silence. Before Rothstein, power in crime meant muscle and fear. Rothstein redefined power as control over money, information, and people's weaknesses. He showed that the man who finances crime controls crime. This idea permanently changed how criminal organizations operated. Bosses who followed him stopped fighting in the streets and started fighting in boardrooms. Rothstein rarely threatened anyone directly, yet people feared him deeply. Why? Because he controlled debt. If someone owed him money, that man's life quietly collapsed. Businesses failed. Friends disappeared. No bullets were needed. Fear became invisible but constant. To Rothstein, gambling wasn't entertainment, it was a trap. He used it to identify weak men, greedy men, desperate men. Once trapped by debt, those men belonged to him. Judges, police officers, businessmen all fell the same way. Rothstein didn't bribe cops directly. He lent money to their friends, relatives, and mistresses. When trouble came, those officers protected him to protect themselves. It was corruption without fingerprints. Lucky Luciano learned that emotions destroy empires. Rothstein taught him patience, planning, and removal of inefficient leaders. Luciano later admitted Rothstein showed him how crime could last generations instead of years. Lansky, inheriting Rothstein's role as the underworld's accountant, he refined offshore banking, international transfers, and casino laundering. Everything Lansky did followed Rothstein's blueprint. After Rothstein, gangsters avoided flashiness. No more gold watches, no public celebrations. Quiet wealth replaced loud power. This shift kept organized crime alive for decades. Rothstein taught criminals to wait, to think, to calculate. Violence became the last option, not the first. This discipline made law enforcement's job harder. His ideas spread beyond New York to Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Las Vegas. Crime families began cooperating instead of fighting. National crime networks were born. Though he died early in Prohibition, his systems made bootlegging efficient. Distribution chains, bribery networks, and bookkeeping methods all came from his earlier operations. Rothstein insisted businesses look clean, taxes paid, books balanced, lawyers on standby. Criminal operations were disguised as normal commerce. Unlike many gangsters, Rothstein hated disorder. Violence disrupted profit. He preferred quiet domination to public terror. Rothstein believed silence preserved power even in death. Talking would reduce him to a victim. Silence made him a legend. His final act taught criminals that even the smartest could fall, but also showed how dangerous he had been if silence was still chosen. Police knew Rothstein was responsible for massive crime, but couldn't prove it. This failure shaped future federal crime laws. Governments began focusing on money trails instead of murders. Rothstein forced this evolution. Modern sports betting laws, oversight, and integrity rules all exist because Rothstein proved games could be bought. Rothstein's empire left few bodies, but destroyed countless lives financially. His damage was quiet, but massive. No one ever fully replaced Rothstein. Others copied him, but none matched his intelligence and restraint. Even today, organized crime still follows Rothstein's philosophy. Money first, silence always, violence only when necessary. Arnold Rothstein didn't just commit crimes, he changed how crime worked in America. Before him, gangs were small, loud, and chaotic. After him, crime became organized, national, and strategic. His influence reached far beyond his lifetime. Rothstein treated crime like a corporation. There were investors, managers, risk assessments, and profit margins. This way of thinking allowed criminal organizations to survive pressure from police and politicians. Unlike traditional mafia leaders, Rothstein believed loyalty was temporary. Money mattered more than friendship. This mindset later became standard in organized crime. He taught that fast money brought fast death. Long-term profits required patience, planning, and invisibility. This philosophy kept many crime families alive for generations. Extortion, loan sharking, gambling, and bribery were combined into systems instead of random acts. Rothstein helped turn isolated crimes into interconnected rackets. Rothstein proved violence attracted attention. Financial pressure worked better. Businesses collapsed quietly. Men ruined themselves without a single gunshot. Al Capone's rise was partially funded through methods Rothstein pioneered. Even Capone learned that organization was more powerful than brute force. Rothstein connected old European traditions with modern American capitalism. His approach reshaped how immigrant gangs adapted to America. Police began focusing on surveillance, accounting, and informants. Rothstein forced them to modernize. Debt, fear, and dependency became weapons. Rothstein understood human weakness better than any gangster before him. Arnold Rothstein understood something most criminals did not. The human mind is easier to control than the human body. He used fear, debt, shame, and dependency instead of guns. Once a man owed Rothstein money, that man was no longer free. His thoughts, decisions, and future were controlled. This psychological control was more powerful than violence because it left no blood and no witnesses. Among criminals, Rothstein's name was spoken carefully. To owe him money meant slow destruction. To cross him meant quiet ruin. Young gangsters were warned early, never gamble with Rothstein, never borrow from him, never lie to him. Rothstein's victims often believed they could recover. Instead, debt grew quietly. Interest piled up. Payments never reduced the balance. Men worked for years and never escaped. This system created lifelong servants without chains. Some judges never met Rothstein directly. They didn't need to. Their debts, favors, or family connections tied them to him. Court rulings began to bend subtly in his favor. Justice became flexible. Many officers knew Rothstein was dangerous, but evidence was always missing. Witnesses disappeared, paper trails ended cleanly.
Frustration replaced justice. Rothstein dressed like a banker, spoke calmly, and acted professionally. Crime no longer looked criminal. This illusion protected entire operations from suspicion. After Rothstein, street thugs stopped becoming leaders. Intelligence replaced aggression. Crime became selective about who held power. Rothstein believed carrying a gun invited death. Others carried weapons for him. His safety came from influence, not force. Though he avoided violence personally, he understood its purpose. Violence was a message, but one that should be sent rarely. Overuse destroyed stability. Rothstein believed chaos destroyed profit. Disorder attracted attention. Structure created safety. This belief became the foundation of modern organized crime. When Rothstein died, no one could immediately replace him. The underworld lacked direction. Confusion followed. Violence returned temporarily. Some copied his money tactics but ignored his restraint. They failed. Rothstein's intelligence couldn't be copied easily. Rothstein believed revenge distracted from business. Emotional responses weakened power. This discipline separated him from others. Even when dying, Rothstein stayed silent. Panic would have betrayed weakness. Silence preserved myth. By refusing to identify his killer, Rothstein turned death into power. His silence became louder than any confession. The government realized violent criminals were easy to catch. Intelligent ones were not. New laws targeted finances, conspiracies, and racketeering. Federal agencies evolved because of men like Rothstein. Accounting, wiretaps, and surveillance became standard. Even today, leagues fear manipulation. Rothstein permanently changed how sports protect integrity. Films made Rothstein flashy and dramatic. In reality, his power came from calm, silence, and patience. Rothstein was not charming. He was cold, controlled, and emotionally distant. That distance protected him. Arnold Rothstein never ruled openly. He ruled quietly, and that made him one of the most dangerous men in American history. After Rothstein's death, many tried to step into his role. None succeeded fully. Some had money, others had violence, but none had the balance of intelligence, restraint, and control. The underworld felt his absence for years. Rothstein proved that smart criminals were harder to catch, but easier to eliminate by betrayal. His murder taught future bosses to protect themselves even from allies. Rothstein trusted very few people. He believed every extra relationship increased risk. This isolation kept him safe, until one mistake proved fatal. Nightclubs, casinos, private gambling rooms all fed money upward. Rothstein rarely appeared, but profits always reached him. For years, people believed Rothstein could not be touched. His death shattered that illusion, but also proved how dangerous he had been. Old policing methods failed against him. Investigators had to study finance, psychology, and networks instead of weapons. Even years after his death, criminals followed his rules unknowingly. His philosophy shaped behavior long after his name faded. Public loyalty invited betrayal. Rothstein kept relationships transactional, reducing emotional risk. Information was Rothstein's greatest weapon. Knowing weaknesses meant control without force. He watched people carefully, how they talked, gambled, drank, and lied. This observation made him unbeatable in negotiations. Rothstein valued smart people over violent ones. He surrounded himself with thinkers, not fighters. Every move was calculated. Losses were expected, controlled, and limited. Panic never guided decisions. Total control required isolation. Rothstein lived surrounded by people, yet deeply alone. Trusting a debt collector who resented him proved fatal. Even Rothstein underestimated human emotion. Money controls men, but resentment controls murderers. Rothstein's death proved emotional hatred can defeat intelligence. After his death, crime became more violent and more visible. His restraint had kept chaos contained. Rothstein's case became a training example for federal agents learning how criminal networks hide. Modern money laundering methods still reflect Rothstein's strategies. Few criminals permanently altered systems. Rothstein did, quietly. Arnold Rothstein didn't rule streets, he ruled systems that made him timeless. Rothstein's greatest lesson was invisibility. He proved that the best crime was the one nobody noticed. Long after his death, criminals copied this rule. Rothstein rarely carried weapons. His protection was money, leverage, and fear of financial ruin. Meetings replaced shootouts. Contracts replaced threats. Rothstein transformed crime into quiet negotiations. Many financial crimes mirrored his methods: false confidence, hidden partners, and controlled risk. Sports betting, casino odds, and fixed games followed systems he refined. Rothstein foresaw stronger federal law enforcement and adapted before others realized the danger. Attacking Rothstein meant financial collapse. Even rivals feared retaliation without violence. He avoided alcohol, emotional decisions, and public drama. Discipline kept him powerful. The higher Rothstein climbed, the fewer people he trusted. Power isolated him. When debts turned personal, logic failed. Emotion broke the system. Criminals learned that intelligence didn't guarantee survival. A man who controlled money controlled resentment. Eventually, someone snapped. New York's underworld paused. Nobody rushed to replace him. Rivals gained freedom, but also chaos. Without Rothstein, organized crime became louder and messier. Federal agents studied his techniques for decades. Rothstein took secrets to the grave. Few criminals permanently altered systems. Money controls men until pride interferes. Every modern crime network still follows parts of his design. Crime became structured because of him. Syndicates today still reflect his philosophy. His influence lingered long after his body was buried. Killers were loud. Rothstein was silent. He never fought the system. He used it. America's crime world became smarter because of him. Brains over bullets. Arnold Rothstein remains a warning. He ruled without crowns or titles. Arnold Rothstein did not just commit crimes, he redesigned crime itself, and the world never returned to what it was before.